Alright, MrSotko here, and welcome back to another Starcraft 2 replay cast. Today it is a 1 vs 1 on Laralac Crest between our teal Zerg player, dTefel, and down at the bottom we have our green Zerg player, Guru. We're going to speed this up to the 8x mark, the 2-minute point of the game. Everything starts to get good. Now it is a top spawn, so going to be spawning directly across from each other. And we're going to slow this on down, and it is going to be a Zerg versus Zerg, which is always a wild matchup indeed. Always one of my favorite matchups to watch, as it is always just so crazy and micro-oriented, and it's the same units versus the same units, and first blood. And the Banelings versus Banelings is always just so interesting to watch, and who's going to blow up more of whose units. And always a very tight matchup indeed. And we now have super fast Zerglings for Guru, not so much for Tefel. So that is going to be a big advantage indeed, both offensively and defensively. But there are 2 queens here for dTefel, so he has the defensive advantage. Now just 1 queen. And both of the Banelings are now out and about here, and looking to blow up on something, but there is a Spinecrawler out. Spinecrawler's 2 armor, so they do quite well against Zerglings, as they don't do too much damage to begin with. And Baneling explodes and takes out a ton of Zerglings there, so that was a very successful explosion, if you will. And just now getting metabolic boost, so it took the time to get that Baneling nest, so it did slow down his metabolic boost a little bit. And 2 Banelings now starting to pump out more Zerglings here. And the hatchery took quite a bit of damage from that initial Zergling rush while it was being created. And now both sides trying to queue up some drones, droning up, and trying to move on with the game for now. And we'll see who gets roaches first to be able to deal with those Banelings from either side. Baneling nest now coming from Guru. So he's going to do some baning of his own. And for a second there, I thought that he may be going roaches. I'm going to need a little bit more fuel and a bit more drones first. But some good old roaches in Zerg versus Zerg, especially when your opponent only has a few Zerglings and Banelings. And Zergling trying to get into the base here. Going to see what's going on. Not going to see too much, as there just isn't much going on. Now we have another expansion here from Guru and another expansion from dTefel as well. Both of them pretty even here. A little bit quicker here. And now over capacity here. And now Zergling's going back and forth here. Guru looking to explode, and probably just let his Zerglings deal with those last 3 Zerglings and save the Baneling for now. And as soon as this hatchery is up, and this hatchery is already up here, so the saturation will begin shortly. And once the 3 hatcheries are totally saturated, the game will begin. Now Teal busting out some roaches here, and they are on the way, has 5 on the way now, and starting to produce a whole bunch of them, so he has the initiative now. If he decides to attack, he would have a big advantage over his opponent, having roaches, and his opponent not quite. But now those roaches are on the way for Guru as well, so he wouldn't have made it just quite in time. But also leaving his base does leave it vulnerable at the same time to Zergling rushes right through it. So Zerg vs. Zerg is a very precarious game. And I find it to be one of the most chess-like matchups in StarCraft, is Zerg vs. Zerg. As one wrong move can cost you a ton of Zerglings or roaches or anything like that. and a surprise tech and things like that work quite well at the same time. Your opponent just goes nothing but Zerglings, and you all of a sudden bring in a bunch of roaches. They're not going to have a very good time. Now Guru's hatchery goes down, and that's going to cost him big there. That is going to really slow down his economy. Not going to be good for Guru at all. And that is just one thing that can happen in Zerg vs. Zerg. Take down that hatchery. Now you don't have the... Not only do you not have the economy, you just don't have the larvae anymore. And now it looks like dTefel is really piling in the troops. They're all coming down one at a time to reinforce this area here. He has 3 hatcheries, his opponent only 2, and there are only so much larvae to go around. So he really needs to make another hatchery as soon as possible, and maybe even a macro hatchery now to catch up, as I am always a fan of the macro hatchery. Rocks going down here, but may not have enough. Guru is sitting at 600 right now, but just really can't spend it all that much. Just using every last larvae right now. So a macro hatchery might be where it's at. He does have more than enough to afford one. And since he can't really afford it, since he doesn't have enough larvae to spend all of his money anyway. And now dTefel getting back a little bit there. Guru now has a chance to breathe, which I think is a mistake on dTefel. And since he got that hatchery, if you get one of your opponent's hatcheries in Zerg vs. Zerg, and you know you have 3 and he has 2, then you really need to press and continue pressing, as the larvae are limited. And 3 hatcheries beats 2 hatcheries, although I suppose skill beats skill, but either way, 3 hatcheries in an even setting always beats 2 hatcheries in an even setting. And Guru gonna get himself free Overlord kill. Always a good time. And I really miss Starcraft 1 and finding Overlords with 2 or 3 Corsairs or 2 or 3 Valkyries and just going to town on them. That was always a good time. I really miss Valkyries. I think they should have added Valkyries. It was a really good unit. So it didn't work so good in Starcraft 1 because of the sprite limit. Oftentimes it just wouldn't fire. If there were too many units on the screen, it would just sit there and float, and it would not fire at all. So in that sense, the Corsair was a little bit better. Just didn't quite have the AoE that the Valkyrie did. And Overlord going to take a bunch of biles there. Another Overlord down. Now oversupply for Guru. And now his other hatchery up and running, going strong. And once again, I think that might have been a mistake on dTefel's part. If he loses the game, it was definitely a mistake. If he wins, well, then he just played really well. And bile coming down all over these units. Both players barely even moving out of the way of them. And now pushing in. And dTefel has had more hatcheries the entire time, so he should have way more units than Guru. You just simply cannot lose that hatchery in Zerg versus Zerg. Just because of the mechanics of Zerg, you just don't have the larvae to produce. And that is going to be GG for Guru. dTefel wins the game. So very interesting Zerg versus Zerg. Taking down that hatchery was just the death blow. I think he should have just kept attacking, as he would have been able to continuously reinforce, and his opponent just simply wouldn't have been able to. But he won either way, so I suppose in the end it really doesn't matter. But I hope you guys enjoyed the replay, and I will see you guys next time.